clang, clang, clang went the trolley. Ding, ding, ding went the bell. Zing, zing went my heartstrings. From the moment I saw him, I felt...
Tell us about your journey to being a part of this amazing tour for Falsettos.
Well, it definitely, seeing the revival, it changed everything for me. I wasn't really familiar with the show. I saw it a little over 10 years ago. One of my best friends was playing with her, and I was blown away, and I was very emotional. I remember watching my friend going through what he goes through in the show, and I was a mess. But I didn't connect to it as, personally as an actor, meaning like I didn't see myself in any of the roles at the time. And then I saw this revival, and I saw my pal Christian Borle playing this role of Marvin, and Christian and I go way back. I mean, I think we're maybe a year apart in age, and we were doing West Side Story in Europe when we were like 23 years old as Tony and Riff. Oh, wow. You know what I mean? So suddenly I watched him doing this, and I was like, oh, I'm ready. I'm at a point in my life that I'm ready to take on this complicated guy, this dad, this divorced man, this man who's come out as gay, who finds a lover. I've lived enough. I'm old enough, and I just hadn't connected before like that, And so I saw this revival, and I think, I don't know. I just, people say, what are your dream roles? Well, I hadn't thought about this role before because sometimes you forget that you're getting older. You know what I mean? I'm so connected to like these young leading men. Well, I'm not a young leading man anymore, and that's fine. So it's kind of nice to see these things and see this role, and it's just such a complex role, completely sung through. So would be so challenging for me as an actor and a singer. So I saw that production. I made a mental note that if they did because that was just a limited production, so there's no chance of me taking over or anything. So I made a note in my head that if they do a national tour, that I've got to get involved. I've got to fight my way into it. And so I did. And so they announced the tour, and then I fought my way into it.
So what message from the show can theater viewers take away, especially if they're seeing it for the first time?
I love what people are taking away is that they see themselves somewhere in the show. I mean, it's a quirky, kind of outrageous show. Some of the things we go through are pretty extreme, Yeah. However, everyone in their lives connects to these feelings of, I lose the love of my life to AIDS. Well, many people have lost the love of their life. It could be their mom, their sibling. Many people have lived through a divorce. Many people have fallen out with their own family and had to find their chosen family. Many people have struggled with their sexuality and coming out. There's so many things that these people deal with. They're so flawed. They're so complex. And yet they're so beautiful. And that's, I think, what life is. And I kind of like that represented on stage, this chosen family and growing up and finding your place. It's amazing how people connect with so many different things in this show.
Absolutely. So tell us a little bit about your own character, Marvin. How are Max and Marvin alike? And how are they different? I mean, was there anything outside of the ordinary you had to do to prepare for the role?
Not necessarily. I just had to allow myself to really go there in rehearsal and to continue to in performance, because I'd say what's great about me and Marvin is that I actually am quite a bit like him. However, we were in very different situations and different generations, and I feel very thankful that I grew up in a very loving family, and although I questioned my sexuality and I was scared to come out, I did come out and I was embraced, whereas I think if I was born 20 years earlier, I might have repressed my own self and allowed myself into a marriage that I didn't feel comfortable with, allowed myself to, have children, and not that we don't have children now, but, children in a different kind of scenario. And, some people handle that fine. It doesn't come out in a negative way. But for Marvin, that repression has led to him being kind of like caught in his own mind. He hasn't matured. And he also is violent. He's violent emotionally. He's a little bit violent physically. He's scary. He's at this place where he's caught and he hasn't fully grown up and become a man to his a man to his wife and a man to his to his son, and he's troubled. And I think I could have been just as troubled if I didn't have as supportive an atmosphere as I did. And so I have 10% of these qualities, and he's got 100% of them. So I have to allow myself to go very far in what I've experienced in my life, and take it many degrees further, and try to experience what that would have been like. And it's scary, and I don't really like it, and I don't really like the feeling I get from the audience throughout Act One, which is they're not on your side, and they're not supposed to be. Marvin is dark. Marvin is violent, like I said, emotionally and at times physically. And it's scary. And I, as a person, as a performer, don't really love that feeling, because you can't separate the vibe of the audience. Like it's a relationship with that live audience, and you can feel them
right.
not on your side. And I like to be liked. You know what I mean? Like, I'm sorry.
I'm so glad you mentioned that, though, because sometimes the audience doesn't think about how much of a challenge it is for the actor up there, to play someone who's not supposed to be liked.
Totally. And I hadn't even realized that, to be honest. I haven't actually been asked to play a character quite this dark, or complex. I'm so glad he redeems himself in a lot of ways, and that he does grow up. He may be 40, 35, 40, but he does grow up and he does mature, just like his son, who's, having his bar mitzvah and becoming a man in the Jewish religion. Marvin, the dad, is also becoming a man on his own in this sort of parallel world to his son. And I think that's really beautiful. And I think it's great because people can change. We don't have to write off people just because they are flawed, just because they can be stubborn and ugly and even a bit violent at times. People deserve another chance, and his world gives him the love, and they stand by him, and he comes through it. And so that's kind of nice. And I do think the audience may not be completely in love with him at the end, but they do see his growth, and I think they're inspired by that, and we all kind of remain hopeful for what this man and what this whole family, might experience if the show were to continue. You imagine their life beyond this show, and you can be hopeful.
Let's talk about you a little bit. Was there a moment when you just knew that you were born for the stage? How'd you get started in theater?
I didn't know that I was born for the stage, but I definitely knew pretty early on that I desperately wanted to be on the stage. I grew up the youngest of 4 kids. My parents were amazing and supportive, like I said, but they didn't grow up with the arts, so they weren't really introducing that to me. I kind of had to find that or be inspired in other places, bring it to them, and then they were like, oh, yeah, great. Yo, you want piano lessons? Terrific. Anything that they saw that I had a love for and that I, was committed to, that they were all for it, just the way they were all for the sports, with my siblings. So they bought me a, crappy old used piano and gave me lessons. And then after 2 years of being, really committed and getting good, they bought me a nice piano, and then that led to singing lessons, and that led to a little bit of dancing and some. I'd run into the city for a quick acting class or something because I grew up on Long Island. They supported it every step of the way. And so once the piano led to the singing, that's when I think I was fully hooked, because once it took me from, playing for people to being on a stage singing for people, that was something that really hooked me. And then within a song, you're already acting, because, you can't, if you're just singing a song without acting, then, it's probably not very interesting. So that, really hooked me on the acting, and then that was it. And then by the time I was in maybe 8th or 9th grade, my parents were allowing me to go to Broadway shows regularly, or taking me and letting me go into the city on my own, and that was it. I was hooked. It was a different time, and it wasn't like social media, so you didn't feel a real connection to a lot of these actors. So it seemed kind of unattainable. It just seemed like such a dream, like this fantasy. And then as I, when I graduated from college and just said, hey, I'm just going to go for it, and just moved back to New York and started auditioning, then I realized, oh, this is this is a thing, you know, and not necessarily just Broadway. I just mean acting in general. Like I was being hired to sing and act, and I said, oh, I can do this. Will I get to Broadway? I don't know. You know, will I become a star? Who cares? But I can work, and so that became really exciting.
Well, and then touring with Liza. Liza.
Yeah, that was yes, the Liza. No, that was I got that maybe like 3 or 4 months after I finished, maybe less than that. That was, I mean, what a trip, because I was this closeted little kid who was like in love with Liza. I knew who Liza Minnelli was before I knew, you know, Judy Garland was. Then when I realized they were mother and daughter, then of course my little gay heart exploded as a kid. Secretly, of course. But I was obsessed with Liza. And so when I saw this audition in Backstage magazine, I was like, that she needed one more backup singer, a guy. She had 2, she needed 3. And I was like, oh, well, hello. I was literally I've been training for this for 15 years. So I just started auditioning, and finally, like the 4th callback, I got to meet her and started touring with her, and it was just surreal. I mean, total dream. Yeah. She was nice as you can imagine, hilarious, and it was, you know, fancy, where I was suddenly this 22-year-old kid traveling to Monte Carlo, you know, getting picked up in cars and staying at the Four Seasons, you know, going to Beverly Hills or Atlantic, you know, Vegas to do concerts. Right. It was ridiculous.
Since we're talking about music here, you have a brand new album that just came out. Congratulations.
Thank you so much. Yeah.
So last night I actually had it playing in the background while I was working, and it was such a beautiful and smooth and relaxing listen.
Oh, cool. Thanks.
So I ended up pouring me a glass of bourbon and just chilled the rest of the evening.
Oh, that is the best review I've ever gotten. I really wanted it to be like that, so I appreciate it.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit about the album and your inspiration for it.
Yeah, well, you know, I've always wanted to do an album. I've always wanted to do a solo show, but I've always just been scared, intimidated, and I was like, what do I want to say? What kind of music do I want to do? And I think doing American Paris on Broadway really gave me a lot of courage to take on something like this, because I was obsessed with Gershwin when I was a kid. So the idea that I was like, you know, 20-something years later on Broadway, singing these same songs that I taught myself when I was playing piano, you know, in 4th grade, it just seemed so surreal to me. And the songs were so much a part of me. It just felt like conversation as I sang them. So I knew I wanted to do, like, have that be a highlight of the show and ultimately the album. And I kind of started from there. And then I realized that, like, you know, I can try to sing songs that are more contemporary or from, you know, you know, like I'm not exactly made for Hamilton or Dear Evan Hansen, you know, and I love those shows. But when I take on things from the golden age of musical theater or the American Songbook, it just has a comfort level for me. And I said, if, for my first show into an album, it's got to be authentically me. So things just started falling into place. I knew I wanted to have a vintage kind of feeling, and I knew I wanted to sing the song I'm Old-Fashioned. And then Billy had the idea to Billy Stritch, my music director, had the idea to pair that with Everything Old Is New Again, because that has the same, you know, theme and vibe that we were going for. And things just kind of started falling in place from there. And you know, there were some songs I took from more recent shows, like Death Takes a Holiday, where I sang this song called Shimmy in Paris, which it could have been written in the 30s, you know, so it fits. And then I tried to rediscover my song from Evita, On This Night of 1,000 Stars, and have it just feel like an old romantic, you know, standard, a ballad. And it just, so some things are newer, but we do feel like there's the overall feel has this kind of love letter, it's a love letter to an era gone by. So it just kind of started falling into place. Once I knew I was, you know, of another time, and once I had Billy Stritch on board, and that the Gershwin was going to be a highlight of the album and the solo show, then things just really started falling into place from there. And it is amazing how once you know who you are or know what you want to say, in something like this, it does start to fall into place. And so for years I was like, you know, I would have a notebook and keep all these ideas, and nothing was exciting me. And then once I felt this started coming together, then all of a sudden it just kind of writes itself in a way. You got to do the work, but then,
exactly.
Yeah.
So you're going to be in Chicago. Are you excited?
I'm very excited. Yeah, I love Chicago, and I've actually never. I don't know how nice it is there yet, but I've never been there. Other than like the dead of winter. So I'm hoping it's a little bit nicer at this time. So I'm excited to be back, and I've never played the Oriental, right, which is now the Nederlander.
Yep.
So I'm really excited. And apparently sales are going very well. And this, I can't wait. I love Chicago. I love the show, and it's just been really fun bringing this show to different cities.
Any favorite hangouts or restaurants got to just do while you're in town?
No, I don't really. The last time I was there was 10 years ago.
That's way too long.
Yeah, no, way too long. And even then, I worked. It was a small theater like by the water tower where I did Xanadu, little Schubert or something. Anyway,
the water tower, Drury Lane or Broadway Playhouse is what it is now.
Drury Lane, I feel like that was it. Anyway, whatever it was, it's been a while, and it was so cold, I just went from my hotel room to the stage door. So you'll have to let me know if there's some places I can't miss. I'm actually looking to discover the city a little bit. I'm excited too because I'm staying with my friend Colin Donnell, who has been there for the past couple of years shooting a TV show, and so I feel like I'll be in someone's home, and he can tell me what all the cool places are, which is always nice. It's nice to visit a city and feel like you're with someone who knows, lives there and knows the city.
Well, the last few questions before we close the interview here are just quick answer questions. So,
okay, all right,
whatever comes up top of mind. So, what's something in your home that would make a stranger think you were gay?
Oh gosh, as I'm literally looking around, and there, my hairless Sphinx cat.
I'm gonna have to check your Instagram for photos of that.
Yes, she's got her own too. Pocket the Sphinx. I was going to say all the artwork of nearly naked men, but I feel like that's so common.
So what's something that might make a stranger think you were straight?
Oh God. Ugh. I'm literally sitting in my living room looking around, and there's nothing.
There's got to be one thing in your home.
I keep out my dad's old firefighter helmet. Yeah.
Okay.
An old firefighter helmet.
Name your top 3 Broadway man crushes.
Gavin Creel, Jeremy Jordan, and Zach Atkins. You know Zach?
I don't know Zach.
We were in Anastasia together. Zach Atkins.
Okay. So tell us about a charity or organization that's near and dear to you.
Broadway Cares Equity Fights AIDS. Has been for a really long time. Goes without saying, they're just incredible. And they're not what I love to, not that it matters, but they've been so successful in their 30 years that they've gone beyond just HIV and AIDS and awareness and education and prevention. They're able to help with so many organizations around the country, or organizations here in the city, free health clinics, right. Phyllis Newman's Women's Health Initiative. They're just one of those organizations that I could speak forever about. I always use, Nick Adams and I we're doing the speeches on tour in our last collection period, and I just love them. It's just one of the greatest organizations around.
Well, Max, thank you for taking the time to chat today. Get to Chicago safely, and can't wait to see you on stage next week.
Thank you. All right. Take care.
Thanks,
it's a pleasure.
Clang, clang, clang went the trolley. Ding, ding, ding went the bell. Zing, zing went my heartstrings. From the moment I saw him, I